Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Lean In Leander. I'm your host, Andrew Nadine, and I believe this will put us on episode 5, so halfway to double digits at this point. Looking forward to what else we have to bring to you in the coming weeks. But for today, I thought I'd turn some attention to the arts here in Leander. There are several people who are involved in the greater Leander area with arts projects. But this particular individual, Deanna Ramirez, is someone who I'm acquainted with. We met a few years ago, and I've always appreciated her passion and her almost single-minded focus on the arts programs and what we can do with arts here in the city of Leander. So I took a little bit of time to talk to her about one specific project, and we're going to go ahead and visit over at the Lakewood Park to talk about what they're doing there, what the Arts Commission is doing to bring some really, really interesting opportunities to the Leander area. So let's go have a chat. So today I'm out here at Lakewood Park with Deanna Ramirez. Deanna, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. And what we're going to do today is, of course, chat, because that's what I do here on Lean In Leander. But today's chat's going to cover a couple of things and a topic that I personally am pretty not involved, but strongly supportive of. Let me put it that way. It's definitely the arts here in Leander, and I think there's a lot of things that we have an opportunity to be able to do. And Deanna is someone who I've known for a while now, who's heavily involved in that particular area. So to kind of kick us off, Deanna, you and we met a couple of months after I moved to Leander. We were talking about it earlier, we were both sitting there in the lobby of one of the city buildings, right?
Yeah, waiting to interview for boards and commissions positions.
There you go. So we kind of spotted each other across the room, and I could tell it was, I looked at Deanna and I was like, okay, here's a funky chick, because I can't remember exactly what she was wearing, but it was something that was like, okay, not of, the normal conservative kind of dress. And I was like, all right, I think I already like her. And then we had an opportunity to work together for a moment on the Citizens Advisory Committee, the original group that started that. So that's where we kind of learned about each other, and we've kind of stayed in touch over that since then on a couple of different things.
We were founding members of the Mayor's Advisory Board. That was really cool.
Yeah, there you go. Founding I'd never had thought of that.
Yeah, founding members of Mayor Hill's Citizens Advisory Board.
There should be a pin.
We did have those little buttons.
Oh, I did. You're right. I forgot about the buttons.
At one point, we had needed to do a survey, and we decided to go around. Was it the Old Town Festival that the Chamber put on? It was one of the festivals. One of the festivals that the Chamber put on, and they were gracious enough to give us a table and a spot to kind of walk around and do the survey. And we had these little kind of pressed buttons that said Citizens Advisory Board on them. And I think Tisa made them.
I designed them.
You designed them. Okay, credit where credit is due.
And Bridget made them for us because she was nice. And I told her what I was trying to do, and she's like, oh, we've got a button maker. And I'm like, great, I need like 6, I think I've still got 4 of them. I don't even know. But yeah, no, that was cool. That was cool. So those are some of those initial efforts working with zero budget. And that's actually a great segue, because it helps me talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've had on the arts commissions here in Leander. So just to kind of make sure that I'm setting it up right and understanding it correctly, so the arts commissions, do you work specifically with the Parks and Recreation Department, or is it kind of just one of the tandems that you use?
So the Leander Public Art Commission is actually a little bit unique in that we are one of the few boards and commissions within the city of Leander that actually has a budget. However, to have a budget, we need a bank account. And to have a bank account, you have to have a city staff member oversee that budget and actually put it into the account. So to do so, to answer your question, we do work directly with the parks. We have a parks liaison, which is Tyler from Parks and Recreation, and he sits in on all of our meetings and kind of provides as an advisor to how we go through the budget process. He takes our ideas, puts them into a proposal for the Parks and Recreation's annual budget, which comes out of the general fund, and then every year, sometime around June, July, Parks and Recreation gets the budget together, presents it to council, and then gets approval for the next fiscal year, which starts in September. So to answer your question, we don't necessarily work with parks in that area as much as they hold our budget. However, in this particular project, as well as our sculpture bench project, we have been working in parity with the parks, I guess, and they've been helping us.
Okay, so in tandem with some of the projects that they have, which is one of the reasons we're out here at Lakewood today, because first of all, it's a freaking gorgeous day. Okay. Then second of all, this is where one of those projects will emanate from, and it's the one that I'm familiar with specifically. But before we get to that, there's a couple other things that I see around town that I think you know about, and you can probably add a little color to. So when I was at the chamber, and I've seen it multiple times, but I've never really thought to like, well, what is that? There's a train. There's like this little ceramic train, not little, I mean, it's about bench size. But it's sitting in front of the chamber. And the other day I was at Casa Cosa, and I saw another one of those little trains, and I'm like, oh, okay, wait a second, this is a thing. So it's a project, I think, with the arts department. Are you guys on that?
No, actually, it's an awesome little project from the Leander Chamber of Commerce. They have a vendor which provides these cute little concrete trains, and they get sponsors from various people. So you could sponsor a train at someone else's business, or your business can sponsor a train at your business. And then the Art Commission will help find artists, and oftentimes it's people from our board and commissions that will paint those, whether it's Jennifer, our former president, or Amanda, our current board member. And so we actually kind of help the chamber in that area. And believe it or not, that is one of the first large-scale around the city art projects that Leander's really had. Do you want to know what our first official LPAC art project was in Leander?
I think I know, but I'm going to let you tell me.
How about you guess?
So one time I was out here at the park, and I'm walking around the park, and I see this little rock, and I think it had like a Snoopy painted on it, and I thought, well, that's kind of odd. It caught my eye, and I was like, that's interesting, and I like Snoopy, so I almost took it, but then I flipped it over, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is something else. So why don't you fill in the blanks from there?
So that's actually several years later. Our first project was
okay, that's not even it. That's not even it. I had the wrong one.
Although starting small was the right idea. Our first project that we were allowed to do and had budget for was to paint a dumpster.
Nice. So where is this dumpster today?
We might laugh at this, but if you look behind the former fire station that's kind of by Pat Bryson Hall, Pat Bryson Hall, there's a little dumpster out back there. Kind of if you're by Casa Costa or walking through the parking lot to Patchouli Joe's, you'll see it in that spot, and it's kind of faded, and that's it. And what's really funny about it is the city actually mentioned to us, hey, maybe paint all the dumpsters because they're kind of ugly when I brought up that was our first project. And then our second project was led by our former president, which was the baseball bat sculpture at Benbrook Park. Because Leander Little League is such a big deal in Leander. We've got an award-winning baseball team. They're really cool. And the Art Commission had the opportunity to put a sculpture there and budget for it and a space. So again, we worked with Parks and Recreation, Leander Little League, and we're able to put that sculpture there. Now that sculpture currently needs some maintenance, and that's where our budgeting and planning needs to come in. As we grow as a city, we're starting to find out that there's things that we've missed, that we've learned, that we didn't really account for in the past, right? We put a sculpture somewhere, but we didn't think about insurance, maintenance costs, that type of thing. And being that we're in a very fiscally conservative city, that can be a hurdle. But shortly after that, we started doing the art bench program. We have three art benches that are at the Leander Public Library, and those were installed last year. And we've been working in conjunction with a group called Leander Rocks, and they paint and hide rocks all over town. Some of our members are members of that group, and they hide rocks here at Lakewood Park. They hide them at Divine Lake Park, Benbrook Park, the library, Veterans Park, pretty much any park in Leander. And some businesses, you'll find these cute little painted stones, and if you flip them over, it says, you found me, now you can rehide me or keep me, and then, tag and post on Leander Rocks. They're a really cool group, and they support us so much that for the grand opening of Lakewood Park, I wanted to get some people excited about art here. So I worked with Leander Rocks, and they were going to paint like 100 rocks. They painted like 250 rocks for us. And I had all these boxes of rocks, which I hid around this park for opening day. And we just had all these pictures from kids pouring into our Facebook about how excited they were, and little kids with huge smiles. And mind you, this is in the middle of COVID. So people were excited to get out of the house and have some positivity.
Right.
And for me, that's really one of the big things that art can bring to a community is
Sure.
it brings people together.
Absolutely.
And it brings positivity.
Absolutely.
So no, our first project was not a little rock.
All right.
It was a big dumpster.
I got it wrong. Okay, so now I have that knowledge base as far as the arts and the dumpster. And so when people say in Leander that our arts department is a dumpster fire, they're really not too far off. So.
We're working on putting a little more cohesion behind it and budget so that it's not.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so on that note, let's talk a little bit about what's coming up here at Lakewood, because it's a super, super interesting project to me. When we came, we were actually invited, Deanna and I, to one of the grand opening, kind of, say semi-private kind of
VIP tour.
VIP, yes. All right, I've made the list, folks. We're on the list of the VIPs in Leander. Imagine that. Yeah, so it was a pretty nice day, but it had been raining a lot. It was all muddy and stuff like that. But so we went traipsing around the park just to kind of get a sense of what was going on here. And obviously, it's a fantastic addition to the city. And for me, it's I don't know, maybe a 15-minute drive, so it's not too bad.
Close.
But there's a lot of people who live very close, like within walking distance to the park, which obviously is a quality of life issue. And for people who have that at their disposal, I mean, what a great way of doing things the right way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because even here today, and again, right in the middle of COVID, I mean, when I showed up here to speak with Deanna, I honestly did not expect to see a lot of people out here, and there's a lot of people out at the park, so that's definitely something that bodes well for the future. But anyway, I digress. The project, tell us about the project out here at Lakewood and what that'll look like.
So this project actually has a little bit of an interesting backstory. When I first came onto the Leander Public Art Commission, you start your board and commission usually in October. However, Leander's fiscal year goes September to September, and the budget is, as I mentioned earlier, decided in July. So I come on to the Leander Public Art Commission super excited with all these ideas, ready to roll up my sleeves, get to work, help people do something, right? And it was like, hold up, we already planned everything. Go in and help others. And I was like, cool, I can do that. I've got some ideas for next year. So I do my work, and when July comes around, I'm like, okay, I want to do a sculpture garden or a botanical garden somewhere. Hey, Parks, where do you have land? At the time, our liaison was a different person, and we didn't have as dynamic as a relationship with the Parks Department as we have now. Mm-hmm. I got to talking with Mark Cummins, and Mark was in full support of actually having a sculpture garden and doing it here at Lakewood Park. Now, at the time, Lakewood Park hadn't broken ground. I didn't know what it looked like. This is just a forest of mud and trees and nothing else. It had flooded prior years. This isn't a floodplain.
For
So
sure.
it was really hard to picture, but I got this map and I planned it out and I pitched it. And mind you, in the past, Leander Public Art Commission's budget maybe for the year, for the whole year, maybe all in was something like $10,000, $15,000, and that really wasn't a lot. Mm-hmm. And I said, hi, can I have $100,000 for this park? And I was like, whoa. But as it turns out, the park had a little bit of budget left over for some specific art earmarked through the Parks Foundation, or Parks budget rather, I don't want to misspeak there, and then we were granted about $45,000 of our own for this particular project. Now, because of COVID, our sculpture bench program that was supposed to go in ground last fiscal year had to roll over to this year, so we're actually combining the two projects and putting two art benches in with this sculpture project.
Oh, okay.
The initial formulation of the project was just rotating sculptures, and then we would buy one sculpture every year thereafter. But as I got looking into the project, I started to get a little more ambitious, as I do.
Yes, and if there's one thing I can say about Deanna is that she is ambitious. She's very passionate. She gets behind something, and it's, I mean, you know, it's not offensive if I call you a pit bull in that particular regard, I think. Not to say anything bad about pit bulls. They're great dogs. And just like Deanna, she's a great person.
No offense to the pit bulls.
No offense to the pit bulls.
I love all dogs, by the way. Pit bulls are wonderful. Yeah, and I would say that that's a pretty accurate depiction. It's not that I would plow down anybody in my way, but I will fight for what's right. And when I believe that our community deserves an art space that is innovative and interesting and will bring tourism and economic development here, I'm not just talking about one little painted dumpster.
Right. And it's really interesting that you would say it that way, because I think that's something that a lot of people miss. And so I want to kind of pick up on that one point there, is that economic development can be driven by the arts. And it's maybe not specifically the people who are creating the art, or maybe the artisans here. I mean, there's bound to be some economic impact there. But this project specifically drew my attention because of the way you were talking about it. And I don't want to misstate here again, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about it. But the idea of the sculpture garden, I think you mentioned something along the lines of it would be the largest sculpture garden in Central Texas, if not the entire state. Is that right?
Yes, so the Lakewood Sculpture Garden Walking Trail, as we're calling it, is actually a very ambitious project. It encompasses approximately 13 acres within a wooded area of Lakewood Park. Here we are. And most of the trails are a bit of compact earth with a combination of paved sidewalks. What's really cool about it is that 13 acres actually sets us apart as being one of the largest public sculpture gardens in all of Texas. So once complete, you are correct, we will be the largest acreage-wise. Now, we will not be the largest at first in number of sculptures,
Right.
but we absolutely have the space to be. And why wouldn't we want to be the biggest and best in Texas? Everything's bigger in Texas. And if you want to put Leander on the map, why not just have the biggest acreage-wise sculpture garden that's beautiful and safe and clean to walk in and enjoy with your family or your friends or a date? Why not put more permanent art there?
Yep.
And so initially we're going to have rotating sculptures, and then every year we're going to try to buy at least one permanent sculpture to add to the collection. But of course, all of that really depends on volunteers, budget, time, effort. And in such a fiscally conservative county, fiscally conservative city, budget is a big consideration. Nobody wants to put taxpayer dollars on things that aren't as important as infrastructure, right? Water's a big issue in this city. Some of our roads have issues. Our police force needs to grow. I highly respect those things and do believe those things are priorities. However, if we don't put time and effort into our arts and into these types of programs, we're going to miss a lot of really cool opportunities. So with that, I actually have a few plans that came out of this sculpture garden project that involve me working towards getting Leander officially earmarked as a cultural district through the state of Texas.
Oh, cool.
The letter of intent is actually due tomorrow. I've already submitted it.
All right.
The full application is due in June. If
Which you'll have next week, right?
If we get approved for cultural district status, that then makes us eligible, us as a city, not just Leander Arts Commission, not just Deanna, not just this project, us as a city eligible for various arts and cultural grants. Those grants could encompass everything from performances in the new Old Town Park, extra sculptures here, all sorts of things, live performances, really cool stuff. Additionally, I am working on drafting language to go to council to get approval to do a percentage of developers' hard costs, so their hard construction costs. Right now we get a percentage of funds for, residential developments. We're not really giving a lot of more residential development permits anymore. So what I'd like to do is get a percentage of costs of commercial developments and have some of that money go to arts and some of that money go to parks or tourism and things like that. So because of the Sculpture Garden project, I'm also working on 2 other highly ambitious projects that would hopefully bring us free money. How cool is that? And then outside of that free money, I'd like to get some business sponsorships for our concrete bases, for some art benches, things like that. So as we grow as a city, hopefully the people that come here to do business will also invest back in this community and give back to us.
I think that's super, super important. I think you hit on something there that when you're in a position that you are rapidly expanding and rapidly growing, these types of initiatives, these types of holistic views and long-range planning oftentimes don't make the cut. And it's a shame, because then when you're all done and you have 180,000 people living here, then you're like, okay, well, we really like to, well, we don't have anywhere to put it now because we've developed everything. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure. But it's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this with Deanna, because for me personally, and I come from a creative background. My father is a painter. My brother is a graphic artist. My cousin Julio in Louisiana is a very prominent artist in Louisiana. So I'm around it a lot. And so, while I don't actively participate to the degree that Deanna does, I'm very happy to know that she's doing that, because it's super important. And to circle it back around and bring it back to that initial conversation, those are economic impacts, okay? And again, it may not be the people, building the structures or building the sculptures or creating the art, although there will be some of that. When that sculpture garden is here, there are going to be people who will come specifically to Leander on a Saturday afternoon to walk through a sculpture garden, okay? They're going to spend their money here at local restaurants, and who knows, at the point we have those, although we do have the Holiday Inn, stay at a local hotel. Yep. And what's to say with this huge pavilion-ready park that we have out here, that we don't develop an opportunity to create an arts festival in Leander that is notable. I mean, come on, yes, we're not Austin, but man, Austin is a cultural hotbed, and to be able to tap into that in some way or another, because not everything can be held in Austin. Yes. There's too many things already. Right. Assuming we get back to some semblance of normality in the next couple of years, which I firmly believe that we will. But this is the type of planning, in my opinion, and again, this is humbly submitted, the opinion of one little guy, living in Leander, and another gal who lives in Leander. These things are super, super important to the long-term benefits of the city. It's a cultural impact, it's an economic impact, and it's a quality of life issue, because people will appreciate that once it's done. And I'm sure there's going to be some detractors. There always are. There's going to be people who think, I don't want that there, or why are we doing this, or why not this other thing? But I think that with the type of passionate ideation and long-range views that you bring to that type of issue, Deanna, personally, I'm super happy to know you. I really am. And I get excited every time I talk to you, because I can see the vision. I can see where that's going to go. So it's super, super nice to know that there's somebody like that in Leander. And for those of you who are watching today, and if you share this with your friends who might be a little bit more artistically inclined, this would be an episode to share with those people, okay? Let them know what Deanna's doing. Let them know what this group is doing. She's just one representative, as she's mentioned several times. It's not just about Deanna. She just happens to be the person I know who knows. So that's why I brought her on.
This is my pet project, but there's a whole team of the Leander Public Art Commission, and they're fantastic, and we have supporters in the History Commission, the Chamber, City Council. I probably can't name everybody right now, but it's not just me. This is just my baby.
Right. And the thing is that we can connect all of these various streams here in Leander. I think it's really important to know that, there are commissions, and one of the reasons I'm doing this is that I do plan to talk to some other people on a few other committees about what they're doing to help this city grow and grow the right way. And I think it's really important, and to me, it does show that there's hope, because, like you said, it's a very conservative area physically, which I can respect, but it does show that with persistence, you can get things done, and it kind of, like I said, I get excited about this project, but I also look at a couple other projects where I'm involved, and I'm thinking, if I can, maybe I'll just pull a Deanna and go ask her $100,000 and see what the heck happens. You never know.
Well, and that's one thing that I'd like to mention. He mentioned to share it with your fellow artists. So the call to art, to put your own sculpture or your own art bench in this very park this year, oh my gosh, I'm losing jewelry.
It's right there.
I'll get it later. That call to art is actually coming out soon. So what a call to art is, it's a formal opportunity for you to propose, hey, I have this sculpture, it costs this much, and what we will come back and say, hey, we would like to borrow it from you, and we will pay you a little bit of a stipend to borrow it, or we would like to purchase it from you for part of our permanent collection. So again, art benches and sculptures, that call to art is coming out soon, and that call to art will come out every single year. And earlier you mentioned an Arts Fest. Actually, Leander Public Art Commission did an Arts Fest 2 years ago. It was a bit overshadowed by another activity that seemed to happen that same day coincidentally, and then this past year we had COVID, but the ultimate plan is actually to have Arts Fest here And the grand opening of the sculpture garden is going to be a big hubbub. We're probably going to do it just after the end of this fiscal year, so probably early 2022 will be the grand opening of this sculpture garden. And I envision having maybe some chainsaw artists with some of the downed cedar trees from the park, and people doing plein air, which is live kind of painting outside, more Leander Rocks partnerships, maybe some live poetry, some music. So I'm going to go all in for that festival as well, and that should be a really fun event. And then the Art Commission hopes to continue our annual Arts Fest once it's safe to do so. Right now, we don't feel that it's responsible to ask 1,000 people to show up in a park. This park can hold 1,000 people. It's not responsible. In the meantime, come down to the park, have fun, envision yourselves here. And what's really cool about these trails is they're not just for people who love art. If you want to be in nature and you want some peace and quiet, you can walk through these wooded trails that I'm protecting through this sculpture garden, and you'll have a place to be. You can take your dog for a walk. You can go on a date with your partner. If you like art, you can admire it, you can touch it. I'm going to make sure all the art won't break, that you can touch it if you're tactile.
Yep.
Everybody experiences art differently. I want to pick on one of our council members right now. Jason Shaw is a city council member, and he's our arts liaison. Jason will tell you he's not artsy. He doesn't get art, it's whatever, but he supports us. How cool is that? And what's really nice about art is you can appreciate it from different avenues. You can say, I love to look at art. I like to make art. I like to enjoy art. Or I just want art in my city, because I know that cities that have art always have a higher cost of kind of income for the people that live there, a better standard of living, a more enjoyable experience, because everybody wins when they're in proximity of both art and nature. And this sculpture park, the Leander Sculpture Garden Walking Trail, it is going to encompass both art and nature and be the place to be. And yes, people will travel here. Who's not going to want to check off the largest sculpture garden in Texas on their bucket list if they're a road tripper or if they're passing through? Also, we're right off the metro station, Leander is. A lot of people underutilize Cap Metro. It brings you right to Leander, and then you can hop on a local bus, which we do have local buses. You call them and you say, I want to go to Lakewood Park. They will bring you to Lakewood Park, and it's just a couple of dollars. And so we can get people from Austin here that want to see something new, that want a nice open space that isn't overpopulated or bustling with cars. Leander has that, and we really need to embrace it.
Yeah, no, I would agree 100%. And I appreciate you taking the time today to kind of serve this up to the folks in Leander and let you all know what exactly is going on. So again, what we're trying to do with Lean In is get you to understand what is actually happening in the city. That's the wrong way to say it. Help you understand what's going on in the city, because a lot of times I'm new, and one of the things that I do is I try to find out, well, what's going on around here? What can we do locally? And this is part of that effort to highlight some of those things that are coming down the bend, and that will make a tremendous impact for this city. And I'm super excited about this project. 2022 can't get here soon enough, but it's okay if we can kind of slow 21's roll just a little bit after 20. That was way too whack. But anyway, so Deanna, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much. It was so kind of you. And for you out there, thank you very, very much for giving us a listen. Join us for the next episode of Lean in Leander, and we'll see you then. Thanks.